All right. Fantastic. The computer says you can hear me now, so I'm going to rely on that. I see Will's here as well. And here's Florence.
Hello, everyone.
Florence,
Hello, everyone.
you have a nice break. Right. So we are about to get started with the Connect working group. Give it a couple of minutes. If you can all go and find your seats or not, we'll get it started in a minute.
I see that our slides already attract some interest.
Just doing a sound check on my side since the
Yeah,
browser
yeah.
says I'm too quiet.
No, that's fine. We can hear you perfectly fine.
Perfect.
So you'll be good when it's your turn. We'll tell you. Thank you.
All right, let's get this started. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to everyone's second most favorite working group of the RIPE meeting, the Connect working group, coming to you live from somewhere on the internet. What can I say? We managed to find the one time slot in the day where in winter I get like 15 minutes of sun straight into my face. So if you think why the hell is he leaning into a corner of his webcam, that is why that is. And by the end of the session, we'll be done. Here we go. So basic rules. There's a chat window. It's being logged, so proceed with caution. If you have any questions about the presentations, put them in the Q&A. There is a poll option that I don't think we're going to be using for anything. This room has one emergency exit, which is on the top right of your browser window. We have a stenographer. Yes, we do. I forgot who that is right now, but I'm sure there we will have careful minutes kept. In case you have a hard time understanding anyone, there is also the stenography track, which I highly recommend people to read or keep track of. You can open that in a parallel window. And with that, let's get started, shall we? And now I need to go to my second slide. Here we go. So the agenda opening, I think that's what we're doing right now. Agenda, if you have any additional points for the agenda, you're a little bit late. So I propose that we keep the agenda set. Session format for this time is it's going to be all publicly accessible. It's all online, so there's no real other options. I trust everyone's had a close look at the minutes from the previous working group session and have noted them with approval. So unless someone has anything really important to say about the minutes from last time within the next 5 seconds, I am going to call those approved. And I think that is it for opening and housekeeping. My fellow chairs, have I forgotten anything?
I think we are quite good. I think we're okay like that.
Well,
I
let me
agree,
introduce
Remco.
let me introduce my fellow chair. So my name is Remco. I am the co-chair of Connect, together with the lovely Will and the lovely Florence, um, who are all here and happy to guide you for the next hour. So we're going to go to the first presentation, which is the Gaia X update, which unfortunately didn't make it to the list last time, but Pierre Gonlier is here today to talk about Gaia X. So let's find him again. Where is he hiding out?
Yes. Well, I think he can enable his webcam.
Ah, yes. Pierre, if you can enable, yes.
Yay.
Ah, here we go. I will stop sharing my my slides, and so you can get that started. Pierre, the floor is all yours.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. Do I really want to share my screen? Yes, I do want. Screen number 3. Good. So you have the device. This is a 10-minute walk through the latest GAIX update. So I'm going to take some assumption about what we do in terms of data space, and I will not deep dive into the complexity of migrating and making data more, creating value, or extracting value out of data. Just one quick reminder, GAIX, it's about European value, digital sovereignty. Sovereignty, there is so many different interpretations that we'll talk about digital control. We will quickly view how to create those richer data space by connecting into a repairable ecosystem, and I will prefer to deep dive directly into the topic next slides. One of the things is that for having those ecosystem and to create those bigger data spaces where we can create data chain or service composition, depending on which profile we have, we need to have those service composition, this ability to plug and play services one with another. So the idea is that you have this like pipeline that all company, all organization knows how to do right now. That could be like standard extract, load, transform, ETL, or MLOps pipeline. But imagine that instead of having that in one organization, you have that in 12 different organizations because we have 12 icons here. So about Gaia X, there is a lot of different papers that describe what we want to do. I would like to start with a simple story that is coming from a NIST paper. I will give the reference in a minute. Two organizations, A and B, that would like to talk to each other. What they have to do is to agree on the same trust model. What is the identity schema? Who issues certificate? What are the rules of engagement to onboard the others? Once you have this trust plane, then you can figure out what type of policies, of rules, of attributes you need to exchange those services, what kind of services you need. For example, most likely if you want to find the others, you need maybe to have a portal, you need to have a catalog or a broker, a scheduler, orchestrator. So that's most of the management plane. One important role that is also described in most of the older organization architecture we've read so far, came across, that's the role of the Federator. And the Federator is here to act as an intermediary in the usage plane. All this stack that I've described are mentioned in the NIST 500-332 paper, which is a Cloud Federation reference architecture. And to understand better what we want to do within Gaia X, I will invite the readers, the viewers, to go and check this, the chapter 1 and 2. Until chapter 2, that's 100% what we want to do. Chapter 3, we kind of start diverging a bit. We talk about data spaces and being able to extract data out of those stacks, ecosystem or federations. That's, if we zoom in, what I've mentioned before, this ability to create data chain. And I'm going to give a very concrete example that for me was like revelation. When you are doing exhaust pipe, in a lot of exhaust pipe, you have to extract minerals, rare earth elements from the ground. Exhaust pipe is one of the most expensive parts in the car because that's where you capture all the particles that are responsible for pollutions. And you need to have minerals there, element like palladium, rhodium, and they are very expensive. Data chain, that will be the ability for the entire life cycle of this exhaust pipe, from this creation by the part manufacturer, the integration in the car, the life cycle of the car, maybe the repair, up to the recycling part of the car that takes years. They can take years to know for the recycling company how much there is in this exhaust pipe to be recycled and maybe sold back to the manufacturer. So this will be the illustration of a data chain, being able to have different actors that have different regulation, market, different countries, and to chain their data, the information, to create a value chain at the end to have a more sustainable market and create more business. Another example that we have in this model also, another way to illustrate that, you have an edge device with a phone. You are the data owner. You emit some data. You want to do some machine learning about the behavior of the users. So you will do a join, a SQL query, join in a place on the cloud, taking some additional information, maybe the information from a website. Then you might do the cleaning, the data traceability, the data augmentation. I skip that part. You will train that model, and you might want later to store that trained model to do inferencing. For enabling that, not in one organization as we do it now, but across different organizations that are different owners and rights, imagine that you have boundary between each of those 6 icons on the top right. And for each of those boundaries that you cross, you need to make sure that you have data consent, the ability to deploy your services on the infrastructure, and the interconnection between infrastructure's element. That's for the technical part. There is also an entire part of the interoperability that we sometimes underestimate. That's the legal part, the identity, the contracting, and everything that goes with the technicality, orchestration, provisioning, configuration. By the way, in a lot of exchange, we speak about portability and interoperability of data. Data is not interoperable. Data is a static asset. You can have data portability because that's one asset, and interoperability that will be between 2 elements. So portability is one, so you can have portability of the data, portability of your license, portability of your identity, and then you have interoperability between services eventually. So the role of GaiaX inside that, we have those 3 planes, and the dilemma now is to figure out how much we define, enforce, or regulate to enable those different stacks that exist already to trust each other and to enable data exchange between themselves. So we have different type of rules and specification. GaiaX, if we have to make the difference between GaiaX and other associations that works there, we are not that much interested by defining how an ecosystem is built. That always has been defined many times. We are more interested how to make those ecosystems interoperable and trustable with each other to make them bigger. So we have to enforce and to specify, for example, what is the trust model between ecosystems. How do you grant rights for being a certificate or a trust anchor? Trust anchor, that will be the one providing the identity. One of the rules that we set, for example, in the GAIX specification, all the identity of the B2B's partners need to be linked back to a state-issued identity. For Europe, that will be IDAS. For another country, the participant of that country will have to elect their own trust anchors. So we define what we call in formal logic the second order logic, saying the issuers must be state-issued identity, but the first order logic saying who is it exactly, that's up to the participant of the ecosystem to define that. But at least we have the same common rules. One level above, we have the description, and then we have to decide how much we enforce when you describe things. For example, the level of portability. We lean a lot on the European work, for example, on the European Data Governance Act, and they have this notion of consent when you use data, when you are exchanging data. So part of the offer when you exchange data. We want to have a consent field attribute where that is mandatory and needs to be explicitly set. However, we will never go down to describe the vocabulary of a specific verticals. We are not expert in electricity, in energy, in transport, and health, and so on. So that's up to the ecosystem to define that. But we need to have, let's say, the first 2 levels of descriptions to be set. And then we have the usage plane, where we have the, let's say, the technical interoperability of which protocol and specification are used. We are looking at 3 of them right now, which are the GXFS, the GX Federation Services, the Ocean Protocol, and DAWEBs. That's the last slides already. That's a very quick introduction of what we are doing, and that's the one that I'm more excited about, I will say. Specification in one thing, but we have to validate those specifications, and we are making several hypotheses then when we are writing them. So the first services where we are writing now in terms of source code and implementation, the source code of the GitLab is public and available here on the slide. That will be to have kind of a dog food or eat your own food approach, test-driven development, if we don't like those words, where the first services will be the association itself issues verifiable credentials about membership. And we would feed that output of the service to as an input of the second service that will be checking the GAIX compliance. And we also have a definition of GAIX compliance in our specification, but that will take probably 1 or 2 minutes, 2 more minutes more. So I will skip that for now. And basically using the output of the first service as an input of the other one, we are going to be able to test and to validate hypotheses that we are making in the specification. Using those second services, which is compliance of GAIX.eu, we also want to enable the existing projects that are emerging to validate day by day as they go, whether or not they are GAIX compliant, and to learn from that all together. Because we are also learning and writing the specs at the same time. All the things I've mentioned in that slide, the implementation, that's based on the W3C specification, mainly 2 ones, the W3C verifiable credentials and the W3C DID, a decentralized identifier. We also have a German and French founded project, which are GXFS for the short name, code name, which stands for GAIX Federation Services. And we have a hackathon next week, the 2nd and 3rd of December, where I will continue to work on those services. And that will be all for me. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Pierre. Will is going to handle Q&A on this one, but there's one question I want to ask, which you didn't expand on in this presentation. So what you're describing here is an interoperable software layer between infrastructure providers, whether that's platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, or what, if any, are the plans on the infrastructure and specifically on the connectivity side for Gaia-X?
The connectivity side, that will be, well, that's a connect discussion. So indeed, there is a plan for that, but the first, that's probably not very well defined so far. We had a lot of challenges to first define the trust model to make those ecosystems interoperable. And for example, the connection to the EX, that's seen as a service, part of the catalog to build your infrastructure there.
Okay, thank you.
There was one big place on network. We believe to have this composition of services, the ability to plug and play, that will happen through the network. So we are heavily investing there.
Okay. Thanks for that clarification. I'll now hand over to Will.
Yes. So basically, I don't see that we've got like one question that it came to a side channel from someone who couldn't be here. So I'm going to read that question and says, how do you accept Palantir and Huawei as a sponsor if you want to make a European cloud? And so that's the question I've got here.
That's a very easy question. We don't want to make a European cloud. That's what I've said in the first slides. We are here to promote European values and digital sovereignty. Some people make the shortcut that says this is a European association, so this is about European sovereignty, but that's not what it is about. We want to enable the user to take educated decision. We want to promote transparency and verifiable information to allow the users to take decisions, like the open food fact of cloud and data. But part of the European value, there is self-determination. If GAIX now says this is good or bad, we even ourselves contradict our first statement of self-determination. So the user needs to be educated taking decisions. And saying that we could have a European cloud only, I will say that this is a very narrow view of how infrastructure and network works.
Okay. Thank you for that clear answer. I don't see that we have anything else for now.
If I may comment on that question also, in the press there is people claiming that most dominant actors are spoiling GAIX without giving names. The last time I checked on the contributors on the Git repository, because we are tracking everything on Git, the top 30 contributors are all Europeans. So I don't know. Yeah, people want to get attraction and attention in the press, I believe.
Yeah, but that's a good clarification. I thank you for that. So I don't see anything else there. I guess that's all then. Thank you very much, Pierre, for this presentation. And
thank you, Pierre. Please, everyone, just do not forget to rate the presentation.
Yes,
indeed,
that's very helpful for the presenters always.
Exactly. Great. Right. Then we can go on.
Up next, we have Leo Vigoda with the an IXPDB update. That's one I haven't seen in a while. Leo, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me clearly?
Yes, we can.
Absolutely.
Super. So my name is Leo Vigoda, and I am the IXP database product manager for EuroIX, and I'm here to give an update on what we have been doing. So first, let me introduce the IXPDB for people who are new to it. The idea is that this is a database about IXPs and the networks connected to them, which is essentially authored by IXPs, and that means that it should be accurate and authoritative, comprehensive, and the data in it should be complete and timely. And that's done through an API. Essentially, IXPs generate a JSON file which is imported and contributes to the overall database. And you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, we publish the data in a website, and you can also see that the website is a little basic. So we essentially found that we have a success problem. When the website was designed, the API that IXPs use to share information through the IXPDB was new, but now we've got something like 1 in 4 IXPs sharing their data, and this is really a bit too high for the current website design. It also makes it difficult to view everything that you want. We have a couple of tools that people like. One example is the tool that allows you to see unique networks, networks that only peer at one IXP. It's popular, but you can only use the tools that we have created and you can make use of. So we wanted to solve that problem. And after doing some analysis, we came up with essentially doing a new publication platform. So we're keeping all of the back end and we're changing the front end. We have found an open data platform that supports dynamic filters for tables, dynamic visualizations. It allows integration with external data sets, and it allows people who make use of the data to essentially publish case studies, go and say, I had this problem, I took this data, I did this analysis, I came out with this result. These are other results I could have come out with if I'd had different priorities, that sort of thing. And so that's something which is going to be launching in the new year. We want more though. Obviously, when we go and launch the new publication platform, it will make things look nice and there will be lots of opportunities. We want to make sure that we prioritize the development which is most important to the users of the IXP database, in particular IXPs, but not only IXPs, also the networks that use the database so that they can plan their peering, and researchers and others. So there's the IXF member export schema. That is there as it is. We need to get more IXPs to adopt that so that the view that is presented through the IXP database is more complete. We also need to formalize the traffic API, and we're looking at other APIs. So we're looking at developing an API to share information about IXP pricing information. This is a challenging one. The offers that come from different IXPs are quite distinctly different. You know, not just peering, but more, many different kinds of service. So that's a challenging one. I've also been speaking with IXPs, and they're looking for information about industrial sector classification, because there are many more kinds of network that are peering now than previously. In the past, it was all, are you a hosting network? Are you an access network? That kind of thing. But now there's, you know, are you a finance network? Are you a manufacturing network? Are you who knows what? So we're looking at how we can enhance the data that we currently publish in an automated fashion to include more automated structured data. And this will allow us to go and integrate better with other data sets, and therefore support much more informed research. So I am very keen to speak to people who are interested in how the IXP DB should develop. If you are a user or not yet a user, but you'd be interested in discussing what you would like, please get in contact with me. My email address is on the screen, leo@euro-ix.net, and I'd love to have a chat with you. And with that, I will hand the microphone back to the chairs, and if there's a time for questions, then I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, this is great. Thanks a lot, Leo. Is anyone having any question for Leo?
I don't see anything on our side. Nothing in the chat, nothing in the Q&A. It's a silent one. Well,
Nothing?
you must be really clear.
So?
I mean, that's really cool. Thank you, Leo.
Thank you very much.
So everyone, go send emails to leo@eurox.net with your wish list and your huge levels of interest and willingness to participate. Right. Let's see, where are we in the agenda?
The colors of this slide are just like really hitting me in the face every time.
I have no idea who made these.
Yeah, I think we were given this from the some people somewhere.
I don't know. Florence, what are we doing next?
Well, the next item that we have on our agenda is the EuroIX update from Bijal from EuroIX. Bijal, we give you the floor.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my slides. And then I'll share myself as well. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Right, I'm guessing everyone can hear me and see me. So
we see you and we hear you perfectly. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. So I am here to give you an update actually on the EuroIX membership. I'm thrilled that we had Leo giving the IXP database update today, and afterwards we have Yolandi talking about the peering toolbox. So I'm going to talk about the EuroIX members. So we are a membership association. Today we have 71 members. You can see them all on the presentation there. We also have a number of patrons. Patrons are typically organizations that work closely with Internet exchange points or support Internet exchange points in some way. I'm thrilled to say that we had a new patron this year, and that's Flex Optics. So welcome, Flex Optics, actually back to EuroIX. So straight on to the member updates. First of all, we have an update from DoIX, who've had their 5th 100 gig peer join. I'm not going to actually read out all the points on the slides because the slides are available, but I'm just going to highlight some of the key activities that have occurred at the IXs. They have an Arista reseller port configuration in use since September, and I just wanted to have a shout out to Florian for that. And they now have Quad 9 DNS mode in service since October and 61 gig of traffic peak on the 1st of November. So well done, DoIX. Update from DKIX. The new self-service portal is available for all their customers, which allows on-demand ordering and provisioning. DKIX have been extremely busy with a number of new IXPs opening in the US and other places as well. They have reached topped their Frankfurt traffic and also their Dallas traffic. And a quick update on the IX API. The work on version 3 covering monitoring and statistics has now started, and input on features and specifications is highly appreciated. So if you have any input for the IX API, please get in touch with any of the IXs involved in that. An update from Interlan. They now have 120 ASNs connected with a daily peak of 300 gigs of traffic. They have been manners compliant since August 2021, and they've increased security by implementing a black holing solution in Q4. Commitment to support community projects, which they've been doing for a while. So that includes IXP Manager and Peering DB, and I seem to have that twice. The black holing solution, which of course is very important, which is why I have it twice. Thank you, Interlan. LukeX, I gave a quick update on LukeX. Actually, I gave a longer update on LukeX last time, but this time they just wanted to inform the community that they are now fully manners compliant and have been accepted as the manners participants. So congratulations on that, LukeX. Catnix. Catnix have been extremely busy this last year. They now have a new peering platform which is based on the Arista 754R. Sorry, I'm not reading that very well. But they have new switches with no oversubscription and VOQ architecture and many more 10 gigs and 100 gig ports available. Their new architecture is based on eVPN VXLAN to increase flexibility and redundancy to ports. The traffic at Catnix now crosses over the 100 gig barrier, so congratulations, Catnix. links. Mannix appointed Links as their technical partner. So congratulations to that. Mannix is a new internet exchange point based on the Isle of Man. Links becomes the official Microsoft Azure peering service partner, and they have a new Links Nova welcomes cz.nic to their exchange in the US. Nokia deploys the 400 gig IP interconnection peering solution for Links, and Links 114, which was the first hybrid event, took place, I think it was 2 weeks ago in London. And I heard that was very successful. So congratulations on seeing people face to face again. And finally, I have an update on INEX. Those of you who are using IXP Manager will be pleased to hear that version 6 was released in September. This included significant framework changes and 2 significant features, which is the interswitch link management and database changing. Further on, they released version 6.1 in September, which focused on the root server configuration generation on INEX's system, and it took the generation time from 0.6 million line configuration from a point, sorry, I'm going to read that again. Generation time for 0.6 million line configuration from 99 seconds to 1.3 seconds. That is pretty impressive. Well done, Barry and the team there at INEX. 178 known IXPs using the platform. I think the last time I heard they just reached over 100, so it's fantastic to see the number of to see the increase in the number of IXs using IXP Manager. And they're delighted to welcome Patricia to their marketing and community development team. So hopefully we'll all get to meet her in person next year. And that is all the update from me. While I was just on that IXP Manager update, I just wanted to add actually that IXPs that are using IXP Manager actually have a default IXF JSON schema kind of built in. So all of those IXs, if you're not exporting your JSON to the IXP database, as Leo's previous presentation, please either contact us or contact Leo, or there's very, very good documentation on how you can actually export the link to the IXP database. And that is it. Thank you all very much. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Bijal. Yeah, indeed, I forgot to mention that on the last on Leo's presentation that there is like a lot of good documentation in the IXP Manager for the IXF. So yeah, do it. It should be easy. I should have done it, but time and stuff, you know, for all mods. Anyway, yeah. I don't see any questions for now. Well, I think that's mostly what we have. So nothing much more. Well,
okay.
thank you very much, Bijal.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
See you next time.
See you all soon. Bye.
Bye.
See you. Please rate the presentations, and I think that we can jump to the next item on our agenda.
Absolutely. Yolandi, are you around? I see you were. Yay! I see someone popping up. Hello, Yolandi. Welcome.
Hello, Yolandi.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, so I guess the floor is yours for the for the peering toolbox updates. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for the slot. My name is Yolandi Robinson, and I am the peering specialist at NAB Africa. And today I will be presenting or standing in on behalf of EuroIX to take you through the peering toolbox. So, if we think about about 20 years ago. Obviously, I was too young to know what the internet was, but at that time, ISPs provided the internet transit to organizations, and that was kind of your only choice to be able to reach the internet. So that was, so you're kind of forced to say that your network will be managed by someone else, by another network that is in charge of the network traffic and the routing of your traffic. And now enterprises has changed the way they access the internet and have access to transit providers. So this has come in terms of IXPs. So enterprises have seen the difference it makes to actually get to an internet exchange instead of going with a transit provider. They are seeing the benefits of the low latency, to have that direct relationship with the network you are connecting to. So there's a whole bunch of benefits they have seen, and they are now adapting to the peering situation that we have globally. The internet has become an essential part of all organizations. I mean, we've seen how the internet has evolved, how technology has evolved, and it's essential to businesses to be connected, of course. And again, coming back to enterprises that have seen, not only just enterprises, but there's a wider community that has seen the benefit of actually connecting to an IXP, to get involved, to be part of that community. So the businesses need to optimize their services, of course. So that means a whole strategy change. Instead of giving your business to a transit provider to manage, it means now that my business, my internal team needs to take care of our internet access and manage that for us. So what are we trying to address with the peering toolbox? The growth in the importance of the internet to business operations is driving the enterprise networks to manage their own connection to the internet. So exactly that. Because of the growth we've seen, because of networks seeing that it's important to be connected, we are now seeing more and more networks wanting to connect and manage their own services. I mean, working for an IXP, I can tell you on a daily basis, we have to do like a peering 101, because we see that the networks want to manage, but they don't really understand how, what, where, when, or where to start. And managing this comes with a risk. I mean, you need to upskill your staff because they are used to the internal ways of doing things. Learning new best practices, RPKI, manners, you need to speak and understand the peering language. I mean, if you think about it, there's a whole bunch of terms that you need to know to speak the peering language. And also to understand, there's peering policies, what's multilateral and bilateral, what's the difference, how can I optimize my peering strategy? And now there's more than one connection to manage. I mean, in the past, if we go back again 20 years ago, you had one connection to your transit provider, and that connected you to the whole internet. Now you are kind of split. So you still have your one connection to your transit provider, but you also have a connection to your local IXP, which has multiple connections to other networks that you want to reach. So that means you need to manage more connections. Instead of just having the one connection, you have more connections to worry about, more peering sessions to manage and to maintain. And it's quite a shift, I would say. If you're just used to the one, it's new to the business, so you are still trying to find your way, still asking the questions. But as we know, in the industry, not everyone asks the questions. They rather keep quiet and try to figure it out themselves. But it's not that easy. So what are we trying to address with Peering Toolbox? So taking control of the network growth, having the right resources, the IP addresses, ASNs, that is one of the things. It's actually funny when someone comes to peer at an internet exchange, they say, right, can we please have a connection to your internet exchange? They don't have an ASN as yet. They don't have their own public prefixes or IP addresses. They are not ready to peer yet. So that is step one. We address this. We help them. We say, okay, depending on where you are located, you can go to Afrinic, LACNIC, ARIN, or RIPE, or wherever to get your resources and explain to them why it's needed and what it does. How do you manage your peers? So how do you manage that peering relationship? How do you initiate that? I mean, it's not just as simple as turning up a service and there it goes. I mean, you need to maintain, you need to see that it's growing. You need to ensure that you are maintaining that connection. With who and what are you going to peer? That is a good question. A lot of networks actually come to an internet exchange. They hear about the bigger names like a Microsoft or Amazon or whoever it may be, and that is the main reason why they want to peer. They are not seeing the bigger picture. I mean, there's a lot more of networks connected. How do you decide who do you peer with, and what kind of peering session would you set up with them? Do you do multilateral with the root service, or do you do bilateral sessions? It all depends on the peering policies. And again, explaining that concept of peering policies. There's a lot to learn. Again, coming back to where do I start? Who do I speak to? Where do I go to get the resources? These are common questions we see on a daily basis for networks wanting to connect to the internet exchange. What are the best practices? Again, it's so important to introduce these new terms to these companies and make them understand why it's important, because this comes back to your security, your network security. It's important to implement it or at least understand it. How do you deal with your network challenges? So what do you do if your BGP is down? What do you do if the link is down? What do you do if your traffic just dropped? So you know, it's a mindset change. It's kind of giving them, you know, a basic guide on what to do, who to speak to, where to go, how do you reach out to the community. There is so much information. Now, trying to explain this into one meeting, I mean, you can imagine this can take an hour, 2 hours. It could take a couple of meetings. And what we are trying to do with Peering Toolbox is give the solution. So Peering Toolbox is a community-focused learning tool. So we got together with a few of our community leaders and have combined some basic information that we feel that networks need to know, and to inform them as to what is your next step, where do you start, what to do. So what is the Peering Toolbox? It's by the community. So this is not something I just sit and I feel this is what you need to know. This is actually a community project where everyone in the community is welcome to reach out, give some input, give us suggestions, and share with us your experience in the peering community, because that can actually help another new network wanting to connect to find their way in the industry. The organizations we have involved includes Lynx, NAP Africa, Microsoft, Amazon, and INEX. So this is not to say that's it. You can get involved. If you would like to get involved with Peering Toolbox and help us put together this this information base, we would love that. The aims to provide a learning structure and best practice information for the new entrants. So again, coming back to when we speak to a network, you know, there's a lot of places you can actually you send them to for information. So for instance, for ASNs, IP addresses, and so forth, you can send them to the RIRs. For best practices, you have the Rpki, you have manners. There's a whole bunch of places. So what we are trying to do is bring that all to one, so that you have a one-stop shop to go to get your information to get started. The toolbox will act as a reference, exactly that us as IXPs, as well as other networks, can help build the peering community, to educate others wanting to join the community, to say, if you are getting stuck, you can go to the Peering Toolbox. They do have the information you need. And if it's not there, you are more than welcome to reach out to the team or to someone in the community that can assist, depending on what you need to know. There's already a lot of good work that have been done by the community. So we do have the website up and running if you guys would like to check it out. So we want to pull it together to make it available in one place, exactly what I said. So there's so many websites, there's so many resources we can use to refer networks to get started, to know what's going on, to learn the language and all of that. We want to put it in one place as one reference point for our networks to get this information and get, you know, peering in the community. So we are not creating a peering Bible. So again, this is not to say whatever we put into the peering toolbox, that is the way you do it. This is merely a reference. It's a guide. It's just assisting you to get started, or if you are struggling with a specific problem, just to overcome it, you know, just to see what, if the community has this issue, how has it been resolved? Or I don't understand Rpki, I hear it a lot, what is it about? So this is not a peering Bible, it's a reference point for the best practice information. The peering toolbox can reference your documents. So please, if you have information, if you have some interesting information for us to put into the peering toolbox that you have seen has helped other networks connect or improve their networks, please reach out to us. We have a peering email address, which is called peeringtoolbox@lists.euro-ix.net. Please, if you'd like to get involved, even if you want to give your personal opinion or suggestion or whatever it may be, we would love to hear from you. So please, if you have any suggestions as a company or as a individual, we would like to hear from you. This is a community-based project. So coming soon, we are going to create a learning structure. So the learning structure will be broken into smaller pieces. So what we've seen, or the feedback that we've gotten from the community, is that, okay, great, we have one reference point to go to, but where do I start? You know, how do you distinguish between advanced information to beginner information or intermediate information? Which we understand. It's a bit daunting just to start right off the bat. So what we are wanting to do is create levels of information. So if you are a beginner just coming into the community, it gives you the basic steps. Do you have an ASN? What is an ASN? Where do you go to get one? You know, all the basic steps to get started. Then we have the intermediate. This is if you are connected and you just want to take it a step further. How can I optimize my peering relationships at an IXP? Then we will have the advanced things, and that is maybe where I am going to start, perhaps with my learning on peering toolbox, is to understand what is the advanced things that I can learn, you know, in terms of the peering community that we have. Oh, and we are thrilled that Philip Smith is joining us as the product manager. We will also be holding a focus group on the 8th of December. Should you be interested to join this focus group, we would love to have you there. So again, if you can reach out to us on the peering toolbox email, which is the peering toolbox at euro-ix.net. We would gladly send you the information for this meeting so that we can get some input, we can share some ideas, we can get you involved. Again, this is a community project, and we would love to team up with our community and just, you know, get out there, get this toolbox, the peering toolbox, just growing as we are going. And that is it. Can you believe it? That is it. So thank you so much for listening to me. I hope it was interesting. And yeah, if you have any questions, I'm here.
Thank you very much. That was really, really nice. It sounds like something I wanted to do for some time, so I need to send you an email, I guess.
Is this on your to-do list again?
Oh, God damn. So, something else. Well, that's fine. I'll survive. I see that we've got Nurani who wants to talk to us. I guess you've got a direct question. I will allow you, I think. Yes. Nurani.
Hello, and hello, Yolandi, and everyone. Great to see that you are pushing forward this initiative, because it's such a wonderful initiative. And I just wanted to actually, well, say thank you to you for taking this over, but also to actually call out to the community, because really, I mean, this is a that we're driving at the EURIX because it's sort of where the community comes together, but the EURIX is not the expert here. So we need the inputs from the IXPs, but we also actually need the inputs from networks. And that is, that's all the rest of you who are in there in the room somewhere. And I also know that some of you actually write sort of guides for how to peer. I know some of the big content providers have done that because you are struggling with the same things when you are trying to set up peering with new networks. So if you have things like that to share, or if you want, if you need to anonymize things, then get in touch and share that, because I think that's something that everyone would benefit from. So both things, resources that you have, but also problems that you see. When you see that these are the problems that we encounter all the time, that's incredibly useful information for us to get in, so that we can create resources around that. So that's what I wanted to say. Thanks, Yolanda.
Thank you very much. Okay, so yeah, that was we have one Q&A. So yeah, I've got one Q&A question from Rpki Validation with no affiliation. Is there a publicly accessible information offering, say a URL, or is this currently only a request for input? And I think there is a URL that was in the slides.
Bijal has shared it in the chat box if you guys would like to check it out. And again, if you have any suggestions, ideas, comments, we would love to hear from you.
Thank you. Okay, that's actually great. Okay, I don't see anything else, and we will soon be reaching our time. Okay. So thank you very much, Yolandi. It was good having you, and I guess we will see you soon.
Yes, and thanks for your enthusiasm, Yolandi. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Okay. So that's amazing. We're on time. We're on time.
Oh, that's
we are.
Wow.
We are indeed. So that brings us.
I had just one comment.
Go for it.
I just noticed that we are having Swinog next week in Switzerland, in Bern, and there are a few free slots available. So you should consider that if you're available to move and to go in a live meeting. Yes, that was my advertisement so for something that I don't organize, but yeah.
Right. Well, so while we're at it, RS NOG is also next week, the Serbian NOG, where I'll be presenting. It is a virtual event though, so you're all welcome to come and watch that as well. Anyone has any other events or online things that they want to plug, because this is your 30 seconds to put that in the chat so I can read it out. I'm going to go on to say to all of you, please rate the talks. The RIPE 83 website is there for you to do that. I would like to thank our scribe, Martin Pels. I would also like to thank our chat monitor, Marco Hogewoning. And I think that is it. I don't see anyone typing in the chat, so that was your.
Well, my lovely Remco, of course we should just like offer our dear audience to send us any suggestion for the next ugly topic for our slides of the next RIPE Connect working group, of course.
Well, not just a slide. Also, if you have topics or other things that you would like the working group to discuss, please send an email to the Connect working group mailing list. Last time I checked, it is functional. It doesn't see a lot of use, but by all means, put something on there and let's have a talk. And I hope to see some or all of you again at the next RIPE meeting, which hopefully is going to be in person or a hybrid, and may or may not be in Berlin. So, with that, I am going to close the session. Thank you all so much for your time. You have just received another 2 minutes back of your life. Thank you so much, and see you next time.
See you next time, all. Bye.
Goodbye, everyone. Bye-bye.
welcome guys. Sanya here for your stretch session. So my name is Sanya, as I mentioned before. I'm from Yoga Sila in the Netherlands, and we're gonna have a little stretch session on our chair. So join me on the chair. Have your hands just on your thighs for a moment. Make some circles with the shoulders. One direction, other direction, and gentle release. Now from here, we're gonna bend the right knee. We can have our hands around the right knee for a little support and just make some circles. You know, one direction, a circle, and the other direction. Then find some stillness. Check if you can hug in that knee a little bit closer, closer, closer. Now either keep your hands around the knee, or you might release the hands and check if the knee will stay in the place. Breathe. And then slowly from here, let's have the knee back down. Let's do the other knee. So we bend the left knee, we interlace the hands, we make some circles. So again, one direction, moving in the other direction. And to release, you hug in that knee a little closer. Check if you can stay here, maybe release the hands. And release it down. Now let's have our feet a little wider than hip width. You can just have your hands on the elbows, staying here, breathing. And if you're okay with it, you can come a little bit more down. It's like a little inversion here. And then gently coming back up, having the feet a little closer together. And then from here, let's wrap the right knee over the left one. And then let's have our right arm underneath the left. Lift the elbows a little bit more high. Breathe. Really notice sensations in the upper back. Keep that soft smile on your face. And gentle release. Now keep the knees exactly as they are. Have your left hand on the chair. Reach the right arm up and make a little side stretch. So just noticing sensations here. Breathing. Then gently let's come back up. And now from here, let's also add a little twist. So I'm going to have my left hand on the right knee and then turning over towards the right. Just a gentle twist. Let's come back through center. Let's release and change. So we're going to bring the left knee on top of the right. I'm going to have my left arm underneath. Bring the elbows a little higher. So really working on bringing those elbows a little higher. And then gently release your right hand on the chair. Reach the left arm up, move over towards the right. It's just a little side stretch. Let's come back. Let's find that twist. Right hand on the left knee, left hand behind you. Let's twist. And then gently, let's come back up. Okay, guys, thank you again for this session with me. I will see you next time.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to MattWG. I actually probably, because of the way that noise cancellation works, let me go put on some headphones for a moment. So I am Brian. This is Nina. For those of you who have not been to a MattWG meeting, we are your humble and friendly, well, most of the time we're friendly, chairs. We have, actually for the first time in a while, we have a slightly relaxed agenda, right? Like, so the last few meetings, we sort of like tried to pack slightly too much in. Today we have sort of 3 presentations plus time for any other business or open mic, or if anyone wants to come up and say anything about measurement analysis or tooling. We will start off with George Michelson, who is speaking about, let me actually find the tab that has the agenda in it. Speaking about economy level views of HoneyNet data, followed by Robert Kistelecki with the RIPE NCC tools update, and Massimo Candela will be talking about open source BGP research. We may or may not have Massimo here in person. As I understand it, he is currently in transit and working to get to a computer. If he is there and set up in time, then we will be hearing from Massimo in person. If not, we will be playing a pre-recorded version of his talk, followed by sort of a Q&A with Massimo. He will be here sort of at the end of the meeting. That's why we've sort of arranged this without like the, usually I know we do the NCC tools update toward the end, but we've shifted this up for Massimo's schedule. With that, I think we can go ahead and get started and call George Michelson to the microphone. George, come on up.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can. Good morning. Thank you for joining us at, what is it, like 2 in the morning there now?
1 in the morning. We keep civilized hours here.
Okay. Well, that's perfectly fine then. George, take it away.
So my slides are coming through okay?
Yes, they are.
Can I just check? Good.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. I'm George Michelson from APNIC, and I'm going to be talking today about a product we have in the Information Services group at APNIC called Dash. Well, I'm really going to be talking about some data in Dash, which is about, at this time, bad traffic information. And it's a pack that addresses a straw man question. The classic problem for a speaker. What shall I speak about? I know, I'll raise a straw man. So this is a pack talking about the straw man question. How much bad traffic should I expect to see? So bad traffic is a term that we're using in APNIC in our Dash service. Dash stands for the dashboard for AS number health, and it's a service for AS holders to tell them about the things that we think might be a problem in their service announcement going to the world. Right now, it's focused on traffic measurements from the worldwide honeypot network, which is called HoneyNet. But we are actually working to bring related routing information services and to provide alerting mechanisms. The pane here shows you a view of our understanding of how much bad traffic is being sourced from your network. I want to stress this isn't a reporting service about things you receive. This is a reporting service about things you emit. And it includes information about which prefixes you are originating that have been seen and over what time frame. And we show what we think your contribution to the bad traffic problem is compared to your economy and region. Now, we have had requests to include more detail, the specific view of your IP and the time and the port, The reason being, increasingly people are behind CGN and they need this to backtrace through the logs in their own network. And we've decided to work on that and also on an alerting mechanism to reduce the time people have to spend coming to the web service, and to integrate more health checks that don't relate to badness. Well, they do, because they're likely to be indicating problems with your BGP, misalignment with IRR and RPKI, but they're not bad traffic in the classic sense. So I want to be clear, the site is a general health site, but currently what it talks about is bad traffic. But I did say in the title, I was going to say what bad traffic is. So, bad traffic, we believe, is fundamentally about subverted systems. But what it really is the presentation of stuff seen by networks around the world that we're all seeing from time to time. Things like SSH login attempts, or probes to port 80 and port 443 to see whether you're running an old version of Apache with known holes they can subvert, or DNS queries looking for open resolvers. So for our purposes, we have asked the HoneyNet to provide us with only information about TCP sessions. And we've done this because we want to discount unidirectional packet flow or the raw IP or underlying ICMP. We want evidence that there's a SYNAC flow so that we can understand that this is highly likely to be a real reflection of origination coming from your BGP. Of course, it is theoretically possible that this is a hijacked prefix and that what we're doing is seeing two-way flows within a restricted horizon that trust this origination and path, and it's not actually you who's doing it, and we haven't taken that into account in this analysis. Really? I think that's quite infrequent. It's not to say there are no hijacks in the network, but for most people, it's not the experience they have, but they do have the experience of having people inside their customer network who potentially are sourcing probes out into the world. But nonetheless, that would have to be kept in mind. So, the HoneyNet. The HoneyNet is a really lovely cooperative project, and it's running toy systems, virtual systems in jails to gather information. And there's a large number of these being run in a cooperative venture worldwide. There's actually quite a lot going on here, because the bad people now know that honeypots exist. So they've included meta tests to try and find out if they're in a jail. It's classic information asymmetry. Anyway, read the URL on the slide here, because that explains much better what a HoneyNet is. The thing is, we get data from them in a JSON format. So we take this data and we use the BGP record of the day and the delegated extended file to add basic information that we can then use to collate things by originator and custodian and registry and economy and perform aggregations. Now, we do also know that the inference of economy here is a bit of a conjecture, and it has to be seen as an error bar on the data that I'm going to present here. So, the straw man, how much bad traffic should I see? Well, we're starting from a hypothesis that traffic distributes evenly and badness distributes evenly across the surface of ISPs. Every ISP everywhere is equally likely to have bad actors. So we'd expect this to be in a view that we can see a distribution of bad traffic which followed approximately the distribution of internet users around the globe, which means it would be a function of your size as users. And it just so happens we have access to a model that talks about the size of different networks. This model is a source of information that comes from outside the RIR system. It's the basic world broadband population statistics, and these are being collated online by the originator for economic and internet planning. Now, of course, it's highly approximate. There's a very nice example of this about 10 years ago when China at the APNIC meeting declared that that year they'd found 200 million extra online users. So we do realize the model itself is a potential source of error. But the model really isn't too bad. Firstly, it follows population statistics quite well. It doesn't tend to exceed the local population data. So we think that's good because population data is managed really carefully. And secondly, we do discuss the implications of this model with people in the community. And broadly speaking, we don't get negative feedback. The community understands the limits of this kind of data. So the model exists because Labs is using it in a mechanism to do weighting. The individual experiments in the ad campaign beneath Labs don't distribute evenly in the world. And that's because advert presentations are very skewed. They're shown where people are currently online, currently active. It's a function of time of day and it's a function of the context of use. But the tests themselves, although they may not randomly distribute, they are valid tests of an effect. And so it's interesting to look at rebalancing this and at aggregations. And Labs uses the weights as a rebalancing mechanism to adjust sample counts so they fall into line with world population and distribution of users according to this information. If it was possible to get ground truth about the distribution of AS relativities within an economy, I think Labs would be really happy to do that. But there isn't information that's available that provides that neutral point source of truth about what happens within an economy. So at this stage, we're only really talking about adjusting numbers based on economy. So we, in this experiment here I'm talking about, we don't use weights to adjust things. We're using it to understand the expected volume of things we should see, the straw man. How does that vary against the real data seen? Well, here's the results. Now, I promised a short talk, so there you are. That's the end of the talk. We're all done here. Thank you. Goodbye, and I'm going back to sleep. Okay, so more seriously, what actually is going on here? So let's dig down and understand this data a bit better. The data is a time series. It spans February 2020 to October 2021, and each row is an ISO 3166 economy from Origin AS. The cells are indicating a rough model of the amount of badness relative to the amount we expected. So it's the ratio of what we saw versus what we thought we'd see. Gray means no data. Green means you actually did better and I haven't bothered grading you. So I've decided to bring things down and simply say you're good, but there is variance in how good people are. Orange to yellow is the initial range of around 2 to 10 times worse than expected, and red means a lot worse, more worse than we expected, up to 200 or 300 or 400 times more worse. So let's have a look at this in summary, and just viewed as a field, this field is green, which means most economies worldwide are either at or below their expected ratio. And also, although you can't see in this visualization, the gray is mostly small economies. So in a bad month, we do actually see non-green states, but these tend to be patchy. So I flagged here some instances of intermittent problem, and you can see that they really don't persist forever. It shows that there's something going on, something happens, but then it's resolved. Whereas there are also economies that have a persisting problem that go on for extended periods of time. Now, let's just stop for a minute and say, so that straw man, are things evenly distributed by population count? And it's completely exploded. It simply isn't true, because that image showed you things don't distribute evenly. Okay, let's take a look at some individual economies. Now, the principle in Dash is that we don't name and shame, but this is a RIPE meeting. And what's a RIPE meeting for if you can't talk about your friends? So I'm going to take the opportunity to mention the worst economy in this model is the Netherlands. Now, my suspicion is, and I have no proof, that this is because the CERT HoneyNet community are using hosts in the Netherlands to do Nmap probes around the world and then do detailed scanning into people's hosts. I don't actually believe that the Netherlands authorities really are sitting on a persisting problem this bad, but nonetheless, they stood out in the crowd. So let's have a look at how things distribute by intensity and scale. This is a sort over the data to highlight the highest average hit rate by economy that we saw. And you will see the Netherlands have floated up to the top. They're used to floating on top of all that water. But you will also possibly notice your own economy here. You might see Hungary or Ireland or Finland or Bulgaria or Russia, and it would be fascinating to know the stories that lie behind why these economies have a problem. My personal experience from talking to people in the communities that do this kind of analysis in Vietnam, Taiwan, and Korea is that the certs take the origination of bad traffic inside their economy extremely seriously. And when we brought this to the attention of them, they generally were aware of it and they're interested in this display, and they have gone back inside and pushed back on the problem, because although they have a defensive posture about bad traffic coming to their economy, they do have an internal problem and they want to fix it. Okay, it's a CDF of about 80% of the problem, but the meta problem here is that it's also a CDF of about 17% of the population of users worldwide. It's the classic 80-20 problem. So let's have a look at real world scale. This is the distribution by user population, and you can see it's a completely different situation. If we take the real heavyweight large economies by scale, they're mostly green, but there are still problems inside this community. So when I say CDF, I mean the cumulative distribution frequency, the mechanism of how to add together all of these samples to arrive at a sense how the curve is settling out in time towards the maximum count of all things seen. Now, in this case, this is actually 40% of the problem, but it's only coming from 78% rather of the population by CDF. So 80-40, that doesn't add together. Well, these are two different sample sets and they don't actually linearly add. Some of the heavy hitter economies do actually lie inside the set of both. So summary, Dash as a service is helping AS delegates to understand bad traffic, and we wrote it to be an information source for the AS holders to understand this. If we take the aggregate, we're really quite confident that the distribution of bad traffic is not even around the world. The problem is focal, let's ignore the Netherlands, and it's a problem in scale, about 30 economies, which means potentially it could be fixed because it's really quite small by economic distribution. I think the economies do understand the problem and are looking at it, but perhaps there's something we can do. Thank you for listening, and I'm happy to talk about this if we have time. The problem here is that Dash is a service for logged in entities at this time. You can't see the data directly because we restrict access to the AS holders in our community, but we are interested in bringing this data to the wider world, and I'd love to know if you think that would be useful. I'll update the pack to include the full economy list so that you can all see all of the data we have in this talk. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, George. We'll go quickly to questions. Brian, go ahead.
So, hi, Brian Nisbet from HENet, and I think, George, you've already answered my first question, which is if someone who lived in an economy which turned up on a slide was interested in talking to their national cert and other people about such things, what is the data that one could show them in relation to that? So you said you're going to add that to some of the packs, but is there, given Dash is a login only, is there more that I could turn around and show them or talk to them about?
Well, that's actually a very interesting question. The problem here is that, in fact, the certs can see this information by going into their own access to the HoneyNet system. What they're typically going to be shown there is the non-aggregate view of the list of IPs. And so it's about digging through data that is in the public eye. What we've constructed is a reduction over this. And that question, is this potentially useful to people, was kind of floating out there. If we can come up with a way to take the aggregates and say these are acceptable to share, and we could provide plots that are finer grained in date and time, they'd appear in a service we have called REX, which is the Internet Explorer. It's the statistical basis of reporting on things seen in the internet as distributions, but also use of IPv6. And potentially we could include this data there.
Cool. I will have a word with them anyway and see if they're already aware of this and things like that.
I'm sure the Irish cert is aware of this problem, Brian.
The Irish cert has been very distracted for the last 6 months. But
can I say that if I floated you to the top 3, it is an intermittent problem within Ireland. It's not a persisting problem. You're not Dutch.
Well, you're right. Tall and all as I am, I'm not Dutch. Thank you very much, George.
Thank you very much. I think we are sort of like directly at time. Thanks a lot. I actually have a couple of questions, but I will follow up with you offline. This was
okay.
Fascinating talk. Thanks so much for bringing it to us.
Thank you.
Next up, Robert Kislecki from RIPE NCC with the tools update. Welcome back, Robert. This time with slides.
Hopefully so, yes. All right, welcome everyone to RIPE 83 in the famous city of localhost, country local domain, probably. This is your usual tools update from the RIPE NCC from your usual Robert. First of all, things around the research that we do. As most of you probably know, we do research activities, try to make sense of the data of internet events for the benefit of the community and all of you, basically. So here are a bunch of articles that we presented on RIPE Labs recently. You can go there anytime you want to and read them in full detail. And I'm going to highlight some of them. Latency into your network and the Facebook event that we probably all know. We also have some guest posts in labs, which is highly useful. You probably know that we also produce some kind of country reports or regional reports every now and then. So recently there was one about the Mediterranean Europe and some others as well. But one highlight is about the latency into your network. So this is the work of Emil, Agustin, and Jasper, trying to use the recently introduced BigQuery data platform. At least for us, that's relatively recent. As you probably know, we pour all of our Atlas data into Google BigQuery for the benefit of all of you, and of course also our research efforts. So you can go there and dig in, which is exactly what Emil and his friends did. And produced a lot of interesting maps and visualizations based on the so-called minimum RTT into your network. So basically from all the probes, we try to see how far you are from those probes in aggregate, median, average, and so on and so forth. Emil delivered a presentation on Monday as a lightning talk. I recommend you watch that because it's a really good introduction, or you can just go and read the article as well. So just sample images. These are all the probes, and the visualization of how far they are from the Google network and also from Amazon Cloud. We also published a different article about the event that we saw about Facebook. You probably know that Facebook disappeared from the net for a couple of hours the other day. And initially people had lots of different ideas about what was really going on, whether that was DNS or not. But what we did here is basically through the tools And through the data that we publish, we try to explain what we saw and try to show people how the tools can be used in order to figure this out yourselves if you want to. In particular, we use BGPlay, which is a quite well-known tool, which can visualize how the announcements and withdrawals happened in real time when the event happened. So if you're interested in what BGPlay can do for you and what kind of data is behind it and how is that useful to monitor your own network or actually watch the events around your own network, I recommend you check out this article. Okay, happenings around RIPE Atlas. What's most interesting, this is just highlights from the last half a year or so. We see a growing population of software probes, which is really good. About a year ago, we had 1,000 of them up and running. Now it's approaching more than 2,000 or around 2,000. I hope that by the end of the year, we are going to reach 2,000. So, please go and install some if you can, which is really nice to see. We are working on new hardware probes as we speak. They are in the making. So I'm certainly hoping that early next year, we can start delivering them to people who are really, really interested in plugging them in. We're still working on the UI, but we did not have enough resources to actually make a lot of progress there. So I'm certainly hoping that next year we can catch up with the things that we actually wanted to do this year as well. You may have heard that we are offering new sponsorship opportunities, which in reality means that we put a better definition of what we offer to sponsors and what the sponsors get in return around RIPE Atlas. If you are so inclined, you're interested in installing multiple anchors, or you would like to support the RIPE Atlas software and service, then please step up as a sponsor, and you will find all the details behind the link. As you can imagine, we're still working on the infrastructure. There is always a lot to do. And in this particular case, we, together with the other teams at the RIPE NCC, are looking at the possibility to put the actual data, big data backend into the cloud and see if that makes sense, if that's going to make things more flexible, easier, and so on and so forth. And following that, we'll probably look at whether the infrastructure could or should be run in the cloud as well. We don't know yet. We will figure it out. About RIPE-Stat. Many of you know that RIPE-Stat received a new UI very recently. Or actually, I think that as the RIPE meetings come and go, it's probably not going to be that recently anymore. But in any case, we call it the new UI. It's UI 2020, which was released in 2021 for your convenience. This is much more mobile friendly than it used to be. It has a slightly different layout, and it is basically aimed at people digging into the particular sets of information instead of just dumping everything on the users in terms of widgets and letting them figure out what they want. We're still supporting the old UI for the foreseeable future. Foreseeable in this particular case means probably the next half a year or a year. And we're looking at what features people still need from the old UI and what features should be migrated into the new one in some shape or form so that we can essentially deprecate the old UI in time. The team is also working on a revamp of the data APIs. This is basically a consolidation of parameters and how we present data and the infrastructure behind it, so it's actually more useful to people. We hope that this is actually also going to be an improvement from the user's perspective as well. RIPE-Stat is one of the first applications that started to use a new kind of documentation layout. You can expect that other applications will follow this as well. It has full text search and everything that helps you to figure out how to use RIPE-Stat. So please go ahead and try it out. Recently, Stat embarked on a blocklist project. We reached out to the community to ask, hey, this is a feature that seems to be useful, but we would like to tap into the common knowledge about what data sets we should be using and why and what makes sense and what doesn't. So this is an ongoing work. We expect to finish it soon-ish. A team of community members together with the RIPE-Stat team has been working on this recently, so I expect that this will come to fruition soon. And then we have operations, as you can imagine, however many queries a day, I think it's floating around 70 million or so, does require some infrastructure that we can trust. So the team has been working on a dedicated cluster for the new UI, so basically the backend operations for that. And then they are putting also energy into making sure that the whole service is up and running, and hopefully, overload in one sense of queries will not affect the others, and so on. User engagement. RIPE-Stat is using feature upvote. So if you would like to give us feedback, then you can do that within basically, or starting from the UI, so to speak, and then using these features, you can let us know what you're interested in, and then the team will follow up and see which ones are the most popular. Okay, IP map. RIPE IP map is our geolocation infrastructure geolocation service. Sorry about that. And this did not really get the love and care that we wanted to give it recently. But in the last 6 months or so, we stepped up our efforts to make it something that we actually want to do in the future. So what happened is that we revamped the landing page to actually give you a bit more of a feel of what this data is about and where it is useful. So now there is a new feature where you can just copy and paste a random looking trace route. So take your favorite trace route, just put it in, and the system will try to figure out the hops along that and try to visualize that on a map. Obviously, the success of this depends on how good quality and how much the data we have behind the whole engines. So we have been working, and we will continue to work on the so-called engines in the backend that actually provide geolocation to the IP addresses that we get. So one of those engines is a latency engine, which is tapping into the RIPE Atlas traceroute datasets and try to figure out, based on that, the adjacencies from known points around the globe, and tries to map where those individual addresses are. A different backend is a reverse DNS backend, where based on the names of the IP addresses, so basically the reverse DNS names, we're trying to tap into that and figure out what names are mentioned there, and give a different opinion on where that IP address is, which may or may not correlate to the latency engine, but this basically, if they agree with each other, that's a stronger signal. So for the moment, we are using a relatively simple approach for the reverse DNS, but we are going to make it stronger over time. We will also add more techniques. We have some more ideas about how to incorporate these, including crowdsourcing and others. If you're interested, please let us know, and we'll happily explain it to you as well. As a byproduct, this can also be used to verify the location of RIPE Atlas probes and anchors, and we can spot some of the errors, so we can reach out to host and say, hey, can you please fix these things, which is quite useful. As I mentioned with STAT, the documentation is now in a new form. It's more accessible, it's nicer, it's easier to use. So IPMap is also doing that. And finally, if you're interested in this effort, then you can sign up to our mailing list. That is the mailing list itself, and behind that link, you can find the sign-up form. The development team behind IPMap will actually send a mail very soon now, I think even today or tomorrow. So if you're really interested, sign up now, because you will get the latest updates from the horse's mouth very soon. So, and finally, RIPE RIS. Where are we with RIS? We have introduced a new peering coordinator role. And as you can imagine, that is someone who is actually dealing with the peerings behind RIPE RIS, so that's great. We have added a number of full feeds, and we also added 2 new route collectors, RC 25 and 26. 25 is a multi-hop in Amsterdam, and 26 is in Dubai, with some peers already. If you would like to peer with them, please let us know. And finally, I think this is finally, there is going to be a RIS jam very soon now, about half an hour from now. If you're interested in RIS, or you want to talk to the peering coordinators, please join us there. the team will be there to support you and answer your questions. And I think that was it. Are there any questions?
Don't be shy.
This time we actually have time for questions. That's new for me. I mean, like, this is a shiny new experience.
Going once. Going twice. Robert, thank you very much.
Okay, you know where to
We'll
find
see
us. If you do have
Yes.
questions, come to a mailing list or talk to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, let us see if we see. I do not see Massimo in the chat, so I will ask the host to go ahead and queue up the video. And we will get started with this and hopefully have Massimo join us at the end. Take it away.
I'm really happy to be here presenting again our math working group. It's always a pleasure. I'm really sorry that you are watching this pre-recorded video, which means that my flight is probably delayed and I'm not yet in my hotel room. However, I hope to be online before the end of the presentation to answer all your questions. And of course, you can always contact me by email at massimo@ntt.net. So I work for NTT, which is a big company doing a lot of things. Among this, we are a tier 1 provider, and I work on the automation and monitoring of our global IP network. NTT has been supporting open source projects for quite some time. Myself, I also like open source. I've been developing various tools for the analysis and visualization of network data, and my latest effort is a tool called Bgp Alert. I have already presented this tool in previous occasions, and but this presentation that I'm going to do today is different. It's the first time I do it. And so I developed Bgp Alert because we needed something, an entity to do monitoring, hijack, visibility loss, Rpki, and many, many more monitoring that have been developed on top of it. And we after released it open source, and now several operators, hundreds of operators worldwide are using it. So my previous presentations were targeted to that type of audience, where I explain how to use it, how to install it. But today I'm going to show you how to use it for research. I collaborate with researchers and I do research, and so while I was developing this tool, I thought to keep it flexible and open so that I can reuse it for my research. And since it's open source, everybody can do it also. And I'm pleased to notice that in the last year, I'm receiving more and more email of people that they are researchers or colleagues in general, that they are implementing their own analysis of data. So I said it's a good idea to do a presentation about it and maybe bootstrap some knowledge about how the system works. So you can find the URL in the slide of the GitHub repo, and this is a sort of a quick tutorial. So if you do Git clone of that repo, you will be able to follow also the real implementation. We will implement a quick data analysis of BGP data in the next minutes. So for this quick tutorial, I wanted to find a use case that was covering various aspects, like, for example, BGP data analysis, Rpki validation, but at the same time that there was a time dimension for the data analysis, and there was something that we could do easily in the next few minutes. So I came up with this use case. So imagine that we want to monitor BGP announcements, and we want to detect RPKI invalid announcements. And we want to detect especially bursts of RPKI invalid announcement, and we want to report for each burst the originaess, the number of RPKI invalids that are announcement that are in the burst, and also store the BGP announcement, the real messages for later analysis somewhere. I think it's interesting, this burst thing, because it happens quite some time that at some point an autonomous system starts to propagate routes that were not supposed to. Sometimes this is due to softwares that they are supposed to optimize routing, and after these routes they leak somehow. And so I thought it was an interesting use case. And of course we have to define bursts. So I just said that a burst is at least 20 RPKI invalid announcement from the same autonomous system in 6 minutes. Okay, so these numbers 20 and 6, they are of course random. Just an example. If you're doing research, you have to justify, you have to find maybe a dynamic threshold or something, but for this quick demo, it's good enough. Each sentence has this parentheses that says filter condition, monitor condition, group condition, and squash condition. We will see what these are. So to understand how you could benefit from it, from using BGP Alerter, I should explain you a bit what you will get already implemented and how this architecture works. So the architecture is composed of various components, but the main pipeline is mainly composed of these 3 components: the connectors, the monitors, and the reports. The connectors, they connect to the repositories of data, they take the BGP data and they put it in the entrance of the pipeline. By default, BGP Alerter connects to the amazing RIPE project that is managed by the RIPE NCC, where hundreds of peers they provide to you in real-time BGP updates. And but you can use also, I don't know, for example, you can use libbgp dump, another open source project, really important, that you can use to read MRT files, or you can use BGP stream from CADA and interact also with other repositories like route views, or as several people are doing recently, you can provide, for example, BMP data. Okay. We will not talk about connectors because the default one is good enough, and many of the analysis that you will do, you will probably not have to implement anything, and if you will have to, it's relatively easy. Just notice that there are 2 files, prefixes.yaml and config.yaml. Prefixes.yaml is where you declare what prefixes you are interested in receiving data for. And we just set it for our use cases to everything, both IPv4 and IPv6, which is quite some data. And it's also a way to show you how you can efficiently operate on such a flow of data with BGP Alerter. And the other file is config.yaml that we will change a bit. The reports are the last one of the pipeline. Once an analysis has an output, the reports, they make sure that that output is persist or anyway shared. So essentially there are reports implemented that they can send to Kafka, or you can send it to a database, whatever you want. We will use the default one, which is to store on file. That's easy, and it solves many of the use cases that you will have. Instead, we will focus on the sensor part, which is the monitor part. And monitors are where the analysis, the logic of the analysis happen. And you will inherit a lot of ready stuff already working, and the only three methods that you will need to implement is filter, monitor, and squash alerts. And this is essentially a zoom in on that process. So each monitor has this filter function that where it's basically the entry point of the BGP message, and it's a synchronous method. You will have to return a Boolean. If this Boolean is true, then the BGP message goes to the next step, which is the monitor. Otherwise, it's discarded and no more resources are used. This filter function is used to discard BGP messages that you are sure that are not going to be relevant for your analysis. The monitor method instead is an asynchronous method, which means that can process in parallel several BGP messages. And what you do here is you implement inside the real logic of the analysis, and you can connect to external resources like an API, database, whatever. In our case, we will connect to an Rpki validator. After when the condition that you are trying to verify is met, you will have to create an alert. An alert is just a data structure. I called it alert, but it's a data structure that contains a description of the verified condition and the list of BGP messages that verified that condition. Automatically, BGP Alerter is able to manage the various alerts in bucket. These buckets are there because you at some point will almost sure need a group by clause in your analysis. And for example, in our use cases was we want burst per autonomous system, which means that at some point we will have to group by autonomous system. This bucket, you don't have to worry, they are automatically managed. Also the memory of this bucket, this is one of the things that you inherit from the system. But you have instead to implement the last method, which is the squash alert, which essentially receives in input a bucket and provides a single unit of output for the entire bucket. A summary of the bucket essentially is a data reducer, if you're more familiar with that name. But now let's go on the back on the use case, and now you understand this condition, the filter condition, monitor condition, group condition, squash condition. You see that they are the various steps. Okay, but let's start to do some coding, and let's start with coding our filter condition, which is we want to monitor BGP announcements. Okay, so the first thing I do is I do a Git clone of the repository, and after I go in here src and after monitors, and you will see a list of files which are the monitors already implemented and used by default by the operators. And in this case, we are not going to use those. We want to implement a new one. So we create a file, which I call monitor Rpki bursts. And in this file, we create a class monitor Rpki burst, and we extend monitor. Okay, monitor must be extended. That is how you basically get for free a lot of things already implemented, and you have to just focus on filter, monitor, and squash alerts, the three methods. So once we do that, I also put here on bottom right, you see the BGP message format that is used by BGP Alerter. You do not have to worry about that. It's just for your convenience to know how it is, what's the format. It is JSON. And the entire pipeline, that is the format, that is the connector already inserts in the pipeline BGP updates in that format. So now the filter function has to be something done on fly to just know if the message is of interest or not. And so we said that we want to analyze announcements. So the simple thing is that we check is if the type is of type announcement, which means that we discard withdrawals, we discard all the other updates of the session and whatever. We just get the announcement. So when this condition is true, the message will reach the monitor. And so basically what we have to implement now is the monitor condition and the group condition. The monitor condition is that we have to identify Rpki invalids. So we will have to do Rpki validation. And we also need to group by these Rpki invalids by autonomous systems. So we start implementing the monitor function. And the first thing is that to do Rpki validation, we need two things. We need the prefix and the origin as, the autonomous system. And we see, basically, we extract those prefix and origin as from the message. And the next thing I do is I take this.rpki.validate and I pass the prefix and the origin as. Okay. Now, this .rpki, it's something that you don't have to worry. It's one of the many things that are already implemented in the architecture and that you will obtain already there. So basically, Bgp Alert has already an Rpki validator inside, and by default, it uses public BRP files like the one managed by the RIPE NCC, which is nice to do some quick analysis. But of course, the best way to do it would be for you to do the Rpki validation and provide to Bgp Alert the file. You can do that in config or YAML. You just provide where the file is, and Bgp Alert will manage the entire indexing validation. And if that file changes, also will reload the VRPs. So when the validation is done, then you receive a result. And the result, you want to check if it's valid or not. We are interested only in Rpki invalid, which means that we will strictly check if it's false. I would like to remind you that validation can be true, false, but also null in case there is no raw for that covering that prefix. So when you do the validation, there has to be a strict equality to false. So when you are inside here, it means that the condition that you wanted to verify is met. And in that case, we create the alert. Okay, we create the data structure, and we have to implement our, let's say, define our group by strategy. And in our case, it's just the origin as. The key of the bucket is what defines the grouping, and you can put whatever you want. For our use case, only the autonomous system is the only thing that we need to group for. And we do this publish alert where we put the key and what's the first parameter. The second one is prefix, but that is just to what is the target of the alert. It doesn't really matter in this use case, but the target of the alert in this case is the prefix. The third parameter, you can ignore it. You can read in the documentation what it is, but we don't need it for this analysis. So it's an empty dictionary. The fourth parameter is the BGP message that actually verified that condition. So we pass the message inside, and we ignore also the last parameter. Now, once we do that, that goes in the automatically managed buckets. And the only thing that we have to worry now is the last thing that we have to implement, that is the squash condition. So when do we provide an output? So when the final result is produced, only when the burst is composed of at least 20 Rpki invalids in 6 minutes. So we go implement the squash alert, and we receive in input the alerts, which I remind you is from a bucket. And what you want to do, I mean, the simple thing I did is like, I want that the list of alerts has to be of at least 20 items. And this is what I validate here, that alerts.length is at least 20. Of course, this is just an example. I'm not doing, there can be multiple announcements for the same prefix. So it could be the alerts are not all unique, but it's okay. It's just an example here. I want to keep it simple, but it will not be difficult to do unique on the prefixes. So what you do here is that if the condition is met, you squash. So you return something. You return, in this case, it's a string that says, this autonomous system announced blah, 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 invalid, okay? If the condition is not met, there is no return anyway. Basically, return void means that the bucket is not ready, cannot be squashed, okay? So here we have implemented the at least 20. Now, the last thing is we need to implement the 6 minutes thing. And we could implement it directly in the code, but there is no need to do that because BGP Alert has something already to do things like this, which are pretty common, and it's called fade off seconds. And I set it to 360 seconds, which is 6 minutes, which essentially means that the alerts in the bucket have a TTL of 6 minutes, and they will automatically be garbage collected after 6 minutes if they are not squashed. Another thing that I would suggest you to change is the environment, to put it to research. This means that you will remove some limitations that they are instead in production that are there to avoid, for example, excessive use of memory or whatever. In that way, you have basically full power on the entire pipeline. And of course, you have to declare in the configuration which monitor you want to use, as usual. Now the only thing that you need to do is to do npm run serve, and you are running the code, and in a logs directory will be created, which inside there is a file reports.log, where after some time you will start saying this autonomous system announced blah 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 invalid prefixes according to the log that we did before. Here there is a small censor, just because this is an example. Now the presentation is over. So I received various emails that people are implemented nice stuff. Please contribute back. That would be really nice. I'm not receiving so much pull requests at the moment, but that would be great. And thank you very much for your attention. And of course, if you want to send me email with feedback or whatever, you can do it here on the GitHub repo. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Massimo, who in the 20 minutes while we were playing that video has actually managed to make it into the room. So Massimo said, hey, wow, it's amazing. It's a different, it's actually a slightly different white wall. You could almost sell this as having actually happened. Have we got any questions for Massimo? We actually have time. We don't have to rush things out the door. We got like 3 minutes.
My mic was off. I was saying that I had to move some furniture to recreate the. But yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry that I had to pre-record the video, but I hope it was.
Thank you very much for pre-recording the video. Like that made this possible. All going once, going twice. The questions.
Guys, I had to move furniture.
Here comes one. Yes.
To the question.
So, like a general question from Pavlos Sarampezis. Sorry if I messed up the name. Any insights for building open source tools for network operators? Just general from this experience.
So are you asking for like a general suggestion or like insights in general? That's the question.
Insights in general.
So, well, my first insight is something that you have to, especially if you're targeting network operators, you have to. I see that the best insight, the thing that I realize is that a lot of people, they really don't have the time. And so you have to make it really something like one-liner, copy-paste, has to work immediately. Otherwise, everybody's grumpy. But yeah, that is one insight. But in general, I think it is a good, I mean, having these open source tools, I mean, there are various online, so that is a great thing. They really help to, for example, the monitoring part. So some companies, they have the energy and the amount of people to develop things in-house or to install them. Others, instead, they are smaller, or maybe that the network is not really their core business. They are a bit less reluctant in doing, for example, monitoring or things like this. So one option is, of course, is to pay a service, which is, of course, a good option, but others, instead, they just don't do it at all. So instead, having something easy, open source, it could help in at least bootstrapping this attitude, let's say. That is, yeah, so a lot of the effort I put actually is also in the making it like easy that self-configures and stuff like this, because I see that it's increases the number of people installing it. So that's a suggestion I have for you.
Cool. Thank you very much. Got one more. Have you, from Kasim Lone, have you run this on historic data, or is this primarily streaming off of sort of existing stuff? And if so, if there are any insights over the longer time period?
So we have been using this for more than 2 years now at NTT, and we use it mostly for our day-to-day monitoring. And for this reason, we are basically using only the real-time version. But as I also said in the presentation, I received various emails from people that are actually running it with for doing a historical experiment, and they are reading directly the MRT file. So I don't have any personal experience about it, but I hope some of these researchers and colleagues, they can maybe at some point write something or release something that we can all use.
Cool. Thank you very much. And with that, we have used our time. Thanks again, Massimo, for rushing to your hotel room and moving the furniture for being able to talk to us. And
no,
for
it's always a pleasure. Thank you very much.
And thanks again to all of our speakers. And we hope to see you soon, maybe even
very soon. But don't forget to go to the RIS Jam that Robert was mentioning, which is starting right after this, I think. So maybe we'll see you there.
Yes. Have a great one, everyone. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.